Hi, I'm Zachary Farnell. Thank you for joining me for another edition of your Timberlane weather update. Here in southern New Hampshire, we are feeling the September weather with our own very special and unique way. We're seeing the rain and the drizzle come through today associated with a general low pressure system, and generally some chilly air has been in the area for the last couple of weeks. Down in Florida, they're feeling September in their own unique way as well. A major hurricane landfall is expected by the time this video is posted tonight. Right now, as I record this video, it is closing in on 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. So down in Florida, the hurricane is expected to make landfall sometime around 8 to 11 o'clock tonight along the Big Bend area east of Apalachicola. I'll get into it later into the video. For now, we'll have a regularly scheduled broadcast before we get into Hurricane Helene and its expected conditions along the Florida Panhandle and the Big Bend as well. So again, for us, we've been dealing with those very chilly temperatures through much of the past week. You could see yesterday the temperatures, as for much of New England, into those 60-degree range, and towards the south, closer to those 70-degree temperatures. But as we got overnight, we saw the temperatures dip very little, signaling a little bit of a warm-up along with those clouds that we've been seeing over our area for the past 24 to even 48 hours. It's been a generally cloudy last couple of days, and today we haven't quite reached the high temperature yet, but again, a little bit of a warm-up, especially down into the south, and that's why tomorrow you'll see on the 5-day forecast we are expecting those temperatures to rise into the mid-70s along with much of the rest of the East Coast, which has already seen some 80s today, a bit of a break from what we've been seeing before we return back to the norm. On the satellite picture, you can see it pretty clearly down the south. It's hard to ignore. We'll get to it later. This is Hurricane Helene closing in on Florida right now in the Gulf of Mexico, but the clouds continue to extend along the entire east coast of the United States, along with a general low pressure system and front system that's been moving through much of the east coast and Atlantic Ocean. Associated with that was the rain we saw today. We didn't get as much as expected. We were expecting the rain that ended up hitting northern New Hampshire. Again, that did miss us to the north, so we got general showers and drizzle for much of the day. It stayed to the north as the clouds continued to cover much of the area, keeping the temperatures in those mid-60s. On the fronts map, you see it. This is for tomorrow, Hurricane Helene, but for us, we see that low pressure system begin to push out away from our area, some general rain and drizzle, maybe some showers in towards the south of New England. Not expecting that for us. We will be seeing generally cloudy skies over the next couple of days before we clear out. That is for Saturday, however, when we can again see more of that rain and drizzle in towards southern New England, but not quite us. It'll stay probably mostly cloudy for us. Helene has turned into a general low pressure system by this time, sitting across the Ohio River Valley. The rain extends all the way out towards Maryland and the East Coast along a front system that it merges with that we are again seeing today. And as we get into Sunday, we see it disconnect with another low pressure system. General rain persists across the Midwest of the country, you can describe it as. Generally, the Ohio River Valley continues to get pummeled with a lot of rain, up to a foot of rain expected in some places across this area. For us, again, Sunday, when we really begin to see that cloudiness disappear, we see the sun come out, and finally the rain has moved out of southern New England, giving us an opportunity to clear out. And that is why on this 5-day forecast you can see the highs tomorrow reaching into those mid-70s, but from there we stay steady in the upper 60s or the low 70s, with the clouds beginning to disappear by Sunday, Monday, and next Tuesday. As we get into the extended forecast, we do see the remnants of Helene moving into our area. Next Wednesday, some general cloudiness and some showers keeps the temperature down low, at least lower than what would be happening otherwise. As you see through the rest of the week, it stays in those maybe low 70s to upper 60s in general, continuing a pattern of clearing into next Sunday, when we can expect some very, very wonderful fall-like conditions across our area. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I'm Zachary Farnell. From here on, we will be discussing Hurricane Helene and its effects on the Florida Panhandle, the Big Bend of Florida, into Georgia, and maybe even up further north into Tennessee and North Carolina. If you wish to stay for this special edition of your Timberlane weather update, please stick around. We have a couple interesting insights into what may be happening inside of this storm. But if you do not wish to, I understand. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll get on with the hurricane update right now. You can see down along this map, here's your Florida Panhandle, here's your Florida Panhandle, here's the general peninsula of Florida, and you can see Helene, a Category 2 hurricane right now, which means it has winds of about 110 miles per hour. It's sitting in the Gulf of Mexico right now. It's forecasted to reach Category 3 status, which means winds of at least 115 to 120 miles an hour by the time it makes landfall. By the time that happens, it'll move up into the, again, Ohio River Valley through Georgia and into Tennessee, where it will stall out, bringing heavy rainfall that we will talk about at the end of this segment. For right now, let's get into the specifics. You're looking at an overhead view of the spiraling and circulating Hurricane Helene. You can see right in the middle of it, we do have a little bit of an eye right now. It's not super defined, and that is really what's been holding it back. Some initial forecast expected Helene to reach strong Category 4 status. We cannot altogether rule that out. However, it seems more and more unlikely as this storm has not quite gotten its act fully together. So from space, this is what it looks like. You can see the general cloud spiraling around down here and the eye kind of getting a little bit defined, not super well though. However, it does have a little bit of time to make it there before we see its landfall and eventually its weakening. Right now what we're looking at, this is called infrared. This is basically how tall the clouds are around the hurricane. So the taller the clouds, the stronger they are and the stronger the hurricane is. So the deeper reds you're seeing, those are very, very tall clouds. The greens are your general thunderstorm type clouds, and any blues are generally some overcast and some light clouds that you can see across much of the area. So as you're looking at this, you're seeing it spiral. The reds are mostly surrounding the eye right now. It is a little bit of a lopsided storm. Much of the tropical storm force winds have been pushed off towards the Florida coast, and that's why all of Florida right now is dealing with a tropical storm warning for those winds over 40 to 45 miles an hour sustained. But you see that eye in there, it's really not super well defined. Again, that's what's been holding it back. My main concern, as we get towards this time frame of it moving up, we will see it begin to circulate better and better, and my main issue is that if this eye does end up clearing out before we see landfall and before this video likely comes out, once again, this satellite imagery, keep in mind, from roughly 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time now. So again, if this eye is able to clear out, we will likely be hearing about a catastrophic hurricane landfall in Florida as it moves up to the north. We can expect to see, if it clears out, maybe getting to low-end Category 4 hurricane status. That means winds of over 130 miles an hour, if not even a little bit higher. Regardless of its winds, the storm surge will be a major concern. That's what this map is looking at right now. We've zoomed in on the entire state of Florida. We will be seeing effects very strong into Georgia, even up to Atlanta. We could see tropical storm, maybe even hurricane force winds all the way up into central Georgia and into Atlanta. But for now, we're going to zoom in on Florida and see Hurricane Helene spinning off. This is its general track as it moves up to the north, and you can see the coastline along Florida has been outlined in these different colors. The key is off to that direction across the state from me right now. I am currently staring right into the thick of this right now, where we're seeing storm surge over 15 feet expected along the Big Bend. That is an area where really the water kind of collects. As the water surges forward, it gets collected into that bowl. The Big Bend is an area especially susceptible to storm surge. So this area expected along all of Florida, going to get at least some sort of storm surge, but again, the worst of it likely to be up in the Big Bend, where we can see up to 15 to 20 feet of storm surge. Truly unprecedented levels of storm surge, something seen very, very rarely along this time of the year, or at all, really. This storm is a very large one, and that's why we can see even down into its Tampa Bay, where we are not expecting to see hurricane force winds, still expecting close to 5 to 10 feet of storm surge into the Bay of Tampa Bay. Along with the storm surge that you're seeing right now, any area that is on land that has this kind of light yellow tint to it, that is area where you can expect tropical storm force winds. So really take a look at the state. It's all of Florida going to be looking at least tropical storm force winds. And then in the red, again towards Big Bend and Tallahassee, the state's capital, will be under siege with some hurricane force winds. That's what the red is representing. Those are expected to extend into Georgia later into tonight and into early tomorrow morning. So the biggest last takeaway from this is that the rain will be pouring across this area. Don't take this graphic for granted right now. Although you see kind of towards Florida a little bit of light yellows, some light oranges, that is up to 6 inches of rainfall. That is some catastrophic flooding potential through the state's capital, Tallahassee, and into look towards out along the East Coast. Excuse me, I am fumbling for my words as I look at this rainfall graphic. It's incredible in towards western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee along the Appalachian Mountains. You are expecting up to a foot, maybe even a foot and a half of rainfall today and into tonight. So we are really expecting a heavy rainfall maker through the next couple days with Hurricane Helene. That is my main concern with this storm. So right now, a little bit of a recap on Hurricane Helene. Thank you for joining me for this extended edition, by the way. We are expecting an at least Category 3 hurricane landfall east of Apalachicola, right into the Big Bend of Florida, where storm surge could reach up to 20 feet tonight, and winds again could reach over 120 miles per hour. By the time you're seeing this, it is very likely that the storm has already made landfall or is at least heavily impacting the coast of Florida. Again, this video was recorded at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the day that Helene is expected to make landfall. So not too out of date. We're working with the information we can right now as we look to forecast just a couple hours in advance as this thing gets really close. If that eye does clear out, the forecast gets a lot more dire for Florida. So if anyone is looking towards anyone in Florida, keep an eye on the satellite. If you are able to see a really well-defined eye, you'll see it is a clear hole you could be able to see. Look right down into the ocean through the clouds. They'll clear out. You'll look right down into the ocean below. If you're able to see that, the forecast gets a lot more dire for anyone in the path of this system, where we can expect to see all of a sudden winds from 115 raised up to 130 miles an hour very likely, although the storm surge will be 15 to 20 feet either way. So thank you very much for joining me for a special edition of your Timberlane weather update. I hope you join me as we get towards a recovery edition next week. Likely not going to be a regularly scheduled broadcast. Instead, we will be looking for a recovery edition of your Timberlane weather update put out sometime next week, late in the week or early the week after, as we look at the remnants of what happened after Helene, moved through Florida, and maybe another hurricane in towards the Atlantic Ocean next week. So again, thank you very much for joining me. I'm Zachary Farnell. Stay alert, stay aware, and make sure to watch tonight up to 10 p.m. as we see Hurricane Helene making landfall along the Big Bend coast of Florida. Thank you very much. I'm Zachary Farnell, signing off.